G'day and welcome back to another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups with the Black Mosquito. We are going to be removing the rocker cover, resetting the tappet clearances, retension the head bolts, fill it full of coolant, get this thing started and hopefully set the timing. Once that's done, we can then send it off to go get dynoed. So as you saw in the last episode, we got this thing started. It wasn't running overly well. It was pretty average, to be honest. It's not surprising. This thing hasn't run, I think, in about 2 years since it was built. So the initial first start is always going to be a little bit, how's it going? But this one here, essentially, we just got it hot enough, which you saw in the last episode, and it's only been about 10 minutes actual time since I filmed that last piece. In which we're just going to be removing the rocker cover and readjusting the tappet clearances, making sure that everything is fine in that regard. The engine is fairly warm to touch, and we're doing all the right things to make sure that moving forward from here, that we're not going to have any issues. Great. Oh, look at those roller rockers. Excellent. All right, let's grab, I didn't really plan this very well. Let's grab a screwdriver. So we also fitted a catch can to this, which we haven't discussed as yet, but I'll do that on a future episode. And the air conditioning, anyone that's at home playing along will know or see that it no longer has air conditioning. You're probably wondering why. Once again, we'll talk about that later. All right, rocker cover off, gasket. Move that to the side. You can see that's an 11 stud gasket. Cork gasket as well. All right, let's retension the head nuts. Now, because we didn't build this engine originally, I don't know what the original torque setting was, but we're just going to set it to 42 foot-pounds. Starting on the inside, working our way out. As you can tell, I don't do a lot of 11 stud stuff. And we're going to start again and recheck. Excellent. Now let's do the valve clearances. Now what I'm doing here is I'm removing the spark plugs simply so I can crank the engine without there being resistance on there, and therefore that will enable us to get to where we need it to be to adjust the rockers. Now this is also something that I do this particular way. You can do it any other way that you like. I've heard that you can do like opposing cylinders, so if it's like 1 you do 8, and if it's 2 you do 7, so forth and so on, I think from memory. I don't exactly remember, but yeah, this is the way that I do it. So there's still no coolant in here at the moment, but instead we will fill it up with coolant shortly. I'm pretty sure I've got some stuff. We're also going to set the tappet clearances to 12 thou, I reckon. Yeah, so some of these are already loose. Yeah, okay, cool. So we're going to start at cylinder 4 and we're going to work our way forward. All right, so it's currently raining here down under, so the light has just become a little bit more scarce. Essentially for this, we're going to need a 7/16 spanner to crack the nut. So this one is rocking, meaning it is not activating on the valve. We're using a 3/16 Allen key. Loosen it off. I have done a video on this as well. Put the feeler gauge in there, give it a bit of a twist. These are roller rockers as well, so it makes it a little bit easier to adjust them. I'm going to loosen that nut off just a little bit more, because I'm finding as I tighten it, slows the nut. All right, there we go, that's gonna be better. Okay, just so we can move it in and out nice and snug. Still not loose enough, unfortunately. Not sure why that's so tight, that is ridiculous. All right, 5th time lucky. Let's see if we can do this again. Okay, just so it's nice and smooth. So it's not too stiff to get in and out. Yep, happy with that. Nip it up, and we don't need to swing off it. Just needs to be, yep. This needs to be nipped up firmly. So we're just going to blip the key, just to make sure that the next one is rocking. Yep. All right, check it and adjust. All right, it seems to be a little bit tight. All right, we'll loosen that one off and we'll keep readjusting them. All right, so I've just found this one here. This is super stiff to move. So it must be binding. Either this is too tight between here or it is touching along this post here. So we're gonna have to look into that because that should not be that tight to move, especially when that is loose. That should be fairly freely able to move. I might just move to the next one and see what it does. Yeah, see, that one's tight as well. That should be free to move. And that one's rocking. All right. So it's these two here we need to be concerned about. Not only that, but also the thread inside here. It was slipping, but I think it might have been slipping because of how tight it was when I was trying to move it. So we're gonna move on and do the first 3 and then come back. All right, so all the valve clearances are done other than these two. So they are super tight and you can't even move them side to side. Whereas like these you can, obviously when they're rocking. That one's got heaps of movement in it. So does that. So you should have a little bit of a gap between there, but there is no gap at all between the spacer and the rocker arms whatsoever. And that is super hard to move. Also just noticed that as well. Might be really hard to see on camera, but there's like some damage taken out of that. Maybe that one was fitted down here originally, not entirely sure. So I need to look into that. But in the meantime, let's put some coolant in it and see what we can do. All right, so we got a bit of a problem here. First of all, the tappet clearances I set are wrong. These are MED rockers. They're not the LDX ones, I think, that they do. They're super expensive ones, but they are the 1.5 roller tip rockers. The clearances do need to be 15 thou, so we can reset that soon. That's not an issue. I set them to 12 thou like we spoke about. So roller rockers are better in the sense that when the rocker arm touches the top of the valve, so let's use this Allen key as the top of the valve. When it touches it, instead of it pushing down and forcibly trying to push the valve into the cylinder head on a slight angle like that, so instead of it traveling up and down vertically, what it actually does is it pushes down, and then as the rocker arm pushes on it, it tries to bring it inwards. So a valve guide actually wears at the top to the side, so it always have a little bit of side movement, and then at the bottom to the other side. So it's pretty much doing that. That's an exaggeration of what it's actually doing. But instead of it just moving up and down, the valve, actually let's use my screwdriver because that's probably easier to see. Instead of the valve just moving up and down, it's actually moving slightly like that. That's obviously quite exaggerated, like I said. With roller tip rockers, what it's actually doing is when it acts on the top of the valve, it has a roller at the top which enables it to roll along the top of the valve, so just under here. When it comes down, instead of it just pushing it and making that arc along like that, what it does is it has a roller, so when it pushes it down, the arm moves in and out on the roller on the top of the valve and enables the valve to travel vertically. So it's a better range of motion, better field in which it travels through, or motion should I say. The downside is that the rollers can wear, which then in turn is another potential point of failure. These have a circlip that are held in, so it can't come out, and they're pressed as well with a jagged edge, I believe, on the opposite side. So there's no way that it can actually come out without, severe force. So the issue we've got now is cylinder 2 and 3. The middle 2 rockers here, there's just no movement at all. There's no movement side to side. If you have a look at this one here, so that's inlet of number 4. That's loose, that's rocking. Inlet of number 1, that has clearance there. And there's probably, I'd probably say 1 to 2 mil movement for the bush to go between there. So I'll grab the camera and I'll show you guys what I'm actually talking about. So when we've set them up before on Grace, these are obviously roller tip. I don't run rollers, I just run forged rockers. There needs to be a bit of movement. So as you can see there, that's probably a bit exaggerated, but that's actually a really good example. So they should be able to move like that. This one here, that one's rocking. There's not a great deal of movement. That one's actually rocking. So this one here, see how there's no movement there, no movement there. You can't even rotate the piece between the two. So what we're going to do is you're going to try one of 2 things. I'll just remount the camera and we'll discuss what we're going to do. Essentially what I want to try, as I said, is one of 2 things. I want to loosen off all the head bolts. I haven't yet got coolant in it. We're going to loosen off all the head bolts, all the rocker gear bolts, and try and just get a little bit of shimmy out of it. If we can get the shimmy out that we need, great success. If not, then unfortunately, we're going to have to pull the entire rocker gear off and work out, is the thickness of them too big, or do we need to get this milled down in between, so the spacer between there. If you've ever bought a set from Minispares or anywhere that sells roller tip rockers, in the instructions it'll tell you you need to make sure that they all have gaps and that they can move. If you look at the original style rockers, which I've got in a box over there, in between there's a spring. So the rocker arms would generally just move kind of where they need to be. So there does need to be a bit of movement. At the moment, because there is none between these two, this is what the concern is. Previous ways in which I would have bed this engine in, and this is a really good point to make, is I would have started this thing up, made sure it had oil pressure, put coolant in it, ran it for 20 minutes with no load, just revved it and then sent it on its way, road tested the car. If I'd done this with this engine, a couple of things could happen here. One is the rocker arms could have seized, broken, and then just sheared off, put metal through the sump, destroy the internals of the engine, meaning it needs to get rebuilt. The rocker gear might have cracked, it may not have opened the valves properly, it could have busted the rocker, the rollers at the end of the rockers. Several things could have actually happened. They may have seized, bent the push rod, which then may have destroyed the cam. Several different things may have happened. If you've seen this before, please let me know in the comment section below. If you haven't, take it from me. The way in which I did this was started up, ran it for a minute and a half in total, and then took the rock cover off, did the head studs, rechecked the clearances, and then that's when I found this. If I'd found this later, it probably would have been too late. And because I didn't build this engine, this is not something that I've been familiar with up until this point. So let's try this. Let's loosen off all these and see if we get any movement out of the rocker posts. And then if not, we're gonna have to pull the rocker gear off, probably measure that and send it to a machine shop. All right, so during that, I went and loosened off majority of the head bolts, other than one. Not entirely sure why. It was not necessary. So as you saw, I just went through and retensioned them, or at least just nipped it up. All right, so we got movement there, thank goodness, that's moving. All right. Okay, so there's movement there. I'm just gonna try and separate these legs. Okay, movement, yes, that feels good. Still feels fairly tight. There's a lot more gap there now than what there was before, which is good. I think this one is still on the top of the lobe, so it's going to be a little bit harder to try and release it. Maybe back this off a little bit more. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, sometimes you just got to work these back and forth. Just depends where the cam is at the time of when you go to do it. Sometimes you'll find it'll be in a really good position. Other times it'll just be in a really crappy one where you need to sit there and fiddle with it to get it to where you need it to be. See, it should be loose enough now where it can all move. There's actually damage on this one at the edge. I'm not entirely sure why or how. Maybe it was like that from factory. I'm going to assume that it probably was, and you should never assume anything, but I want to say there is a little bit of damage on the edge of that. Go retension all of these. See, because we now have movement, maybe as we retension it now, we'll find that it's going to realign where it needs to be, and hopefully get back up. Yeah, I'd say it's probably right at the top of that lobe. That's why it didn't come up. It's important to make sure you do these up evenly as well, because if you don't, you can snap the shaft as well, I believe. I've done 2 sets of these already, the forged rocker arms. Sorry, should I say forged rocker arms and the roller tip rockers as well. So anyone in the comment section that's got them, please let me know. If you do, if you have, you experimented with them, what issues you've had, you know, what benefits you've had, you know, how much power you're making from it, all that sort of jazz. It's always good to hear comments and feedback from everyone. Just do them up nice and evenly. Obviously, I'm just nipping these up. I'm not doing them to specifications at the moment, because I just want to check it to make sure that as we tighten them down, we have movement where we need them to be on the rockers. And we can always just spin the engine over, hopefully just by hand, or just blip the key to see if we can get it where we need it to be to make the adjustments. All right, that's better. All right, so it's on there, yeah. It's pushing down. All right, so that feels much better. All right, let's go retension all of these, and then we'll come back and recheck the clearances. All right, so I just went and checked these. It's movement, plenty movement, movement, movement. That's rocking. Sorry, that's on the valve. There is movement there, which is good, and that's on the valve. So let's turn it over bit by bit and reset the tapper clearances to 15 thou. We're going to start with number 1. All right, so that is done. They're all adjusted. There is movement in them, which is good. So I might just, oh, there we go. Yeah, those actually move now. There's before we didn't have any movement. Obviously they're rocking. Sorry, they're not rocking. There's a little bit of movement there, which is good. Might just crank it over just a couple of times, just to get a bit of movement out of it. Whoa, that thing is jumping sparks like nothing else. Whew. Yep. Okay. That's good. Okay, that one. Yeah, that's moving. Obviously at the right angle it'll move, which is great. That is exactly where we need it to be and what we want it to be looking like. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right, cool. Great success. So now we move on to refitting the rocker cover, getting some coolant in the system, make sure everything's fine, refitting the plugs, and I don't actually know what we're going to do next. Actually, I know what we need to do. We need to figure out the ignition coil because the tacho isn't working. So I just realized what I'd said earlier in the video, that these are MAD roller tip rockers and the clearance needs to be set to 15 thou. Originally I had it set to 12. Just because a rocker is a 1.5 to 1 does not denote that it needs to have 15 thou tapper clearance. What determines that is the camshaft that is fitted. This has an SW7 from what we believe it to be. All the research through the customer's invoices shows SW7. Having looked online for an SW7 camshaft, they don't make it. It's either an SW5, SW8 or SW10. Through further research, we found it to have a SW5-07 camshaft. Maybe it's a subsidiary of the Swift Tune camshaft. Not entirely sure. Maybe the SW7 was something before they released the 8. Not entirely sure. This was 2019 when it happened. It is now 2025, so it is 6 years post the build. So anyone that knows anything about this, please let me know. But I did get that wrong. So it's not in fact the rockers that determine the clearance, it is the camshaft. All right, so the last thing we're going to do before we move on to the next episode is we're going to get the tacho wired in to the correct location on the coil. Now, originally I was going to jump on and have a look at the reason why the battery light's on it whilst running. I obviously can't run at the moment. The time is currently 8:30 at night. I really don't want to be A, stinking out my house, B, stinking out the garage, or C, waking up my kids. So we're going to do that on a later episode. I'll pretty much just touch base with you on what I want to do. Essentially all I do there is just start it, run it, check the charge rate of the alternator. So we'll check it at the battery and then we'll do a test as well at the alternator. I'll hopefully talk to you guys about that on another episode. Make sure it's charging, and then if not, then we have a problem, so we have to obviously work that out. But yeah, let's jump into it and let's work out how and why the tacho is not working. All right, so in a classic Mini, there are two wires that run at the back of the dash from the ignition coil up to the dash. So one is a spade terminal on this model, and the other one is a bullet terminal. Now, Grace has two bullet terminals, I think. One's male, one's female, I think. Essentially, it's just up under here, so it's going to be mega hard to see, and I do apologize. I'll see if I can put a photo on the screen. Essentially, where my hand is just here, that's where the spade terminal goes, and above that we have the bullet terminal, so that's the female one, I think. So what we're going to do is just disconnect that, and then we're going to test to see which is power and then which is the earth wire. So I'll try and pull these wires out through here. All right, so there we go. There are two wires that we want to be looking at. So essentially one of these is going to be power. What we're going to be doing is using a multimeter. So this one here, that's from the old Dick Smith from back in the day. I've actually had this since I was an apprentice, so it's over 20 years old. Probably one of the best tools that I'd ever bought, and highly recommend anyone to get one. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick it inside this terminal just here. And we're going to be, let's actually back probe it, because then that way we're not going to damage the terminal. So we're just back probing it by going up in there. See if we can just jam it in there enough where I don't have to hold it. And then we're going to be testing earth. So once I work that out, sorry, the lighting's not overly good. My battery on my light is almost dead. We're going to use the key or ignition barrel as a earth. So Tomo's tech tip, use the earth here as an earth. I'm going to check there. All right, so we've got 12 volts. If I disconnect it from earth, the voltage just goes up and down. It's pretty normal. Back on, it goes to 12 volts. That's pretty much battery voltage. So we know that that one is positive. If we go to this one, we'll pretty much find this should be negative. So I'll just kind of wedge it there, just like that. This is quite awkward to do one-handed. So let's just see if we can jam that in there. Jam it up under there somewhere. And then grab my earth, test it, and see. Yes, that just goes up and down. So that is definitely our earth. Another way to check, I'll turn that off, is to run it from the other wire to continuity. So we're going to go down to here, so ohms, and then we also have a option to go ohms with a buzzer. So just down under here, it's got a little symbol for noise. So we're just going to touch here, and that should give us a beep, which is actually not, probably because it's not connected on the other end. So let's just go back to ohms, check it down there. Yeah, okay, so that's going to be open circuit at the moment. So that isn't an issue because we now have a really good starting point as to where we need to be. So one is positive, and then the other one's going to be negative. We're going to run that wire, we're going to trace that wire from the back of the dash all the way through to the ignition coil. We're going to use continuity, and we'll talk about that in the next scene. All right, so quick little talk here on current. So you got to look at current like a drain pipe. That's a really easy way to explain it. If the drain pipe is empty and there's nothing in there, water can flow through there. There is zero resistance. If the drain is blocked, and let's just say 50% of water can get through there, we have resistance. The higher the resistance, the less water flows through there. Therefore, in electrical terms, it means that the higher the resistance, the less current can flow, and therefore the item, for instance, our tacho doesn't work, or our lights don't work, the switch doesn't work, control module, whatever it is, does not work. So it's important here to make sure that we have low resistance, if any at all. Now, resistance can be caused by things like heat, poor connections, etc., etc. So you can even have load on the system, like a globe, for instance, that will cause resistance. So what we're going to be doing is checking the continuity, which means that the current is able to flow, or in layman's terms, that water is able to flow through that pipe. So long as we have continuity in that single wire between the back of the dash and the ignition coil, we know we're on the right track. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is testing this wire here. So this is white with a black trace. We're testing continuity between here and the ignition coil. So because I've got the windscreen out of it at the moment, this is going to be much, much easier. We're going to grab our multimeter. You can do this one of two ways. As I said, you can set it to ohms, which is this little symbol here. It's always important to make sure that before you do any tests, you check your multimeter, make sure you don't have high resistance. Obviously, the lower resistance, the better. With it making the noise, it's actually going to be a little bit higher. So if we just go back to switched off, we should be able to get it generally a little bit lower, I think, from memory. Nope, just made a liar out of me. My bad, disregard that. I like to set it to the audible sound because it just makes it a bit easier, especially if you've got a loose terminal, you know just by wiggling it. So it doesn't matter which of the two terminals you use, whether it be the red one or the black one. We're going to stick one down there for now. We're going to grab the other wire once I untangle it from here. Oh, by the way, jump on the Mighty Car Mods website and grab yourself a set of magnetic guard covers. Probably one of the best tools you'll ever buy, or best piece of equipment, should I say, that you'll ever buy. So we're going to run that down here. So down at the coil, we're going to have a couple of different colored wires. So we have a coil down there. We have a positive and negative. I've done the positive with red heat shrink and the negative in black. So down here we have this wire just here. Let's just have a look. Yeah, that one there. So I've made just that little dummy wire because I've gone and checked it out beforehand last night in the previous part of the episode. We're going to grab our terminal and we're just going to stick it down in there. And once I can fandoogle it, we can get it set up in there correctly. So you just want to probe it down in there. Just make sure there's a nice good connection. You don't want to be spreading the terminals too far apart, but making sure that it is in there quite secure. So that's now in there. Now, as I said, doing this one-handed is actually quite hard. So let's see if I can just rig the camera up to get this to do it without me having to hold it and be Tarzan. All right, here we go. So now we're listening for the audible sound. Fantastic. That means that continuity is able to flow through there. So that is the correct wire, and that one needs to go to the back of the dash. So we reconnect this one just up in here. You can generally do it by feel. Push it straight in. All right, that's in, that's on. Now we got to go back down to the ignition coil and fit it. So that wire that comes directly from the back of the dash, that's going to go to the negative side because it's negatively switched. Any tacho you wire up, you'll find it'll be wired this way. So the negative side of the coil goes directly to the back of the tacho. Now I should also mention that wire is not overly long, as you can see just down in there. It doesn't come up that far. It pretty much goes to, if I stretch it, maybe to the distributor, but that's about it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run a male terminal down in there. we're going to run it up probably through this piece of conduit, down around to the back, and then connect it to the back of the ignition coil. All right, so I've just got this connected. I was just doing a couple of checks with my multimeter. That actually does RPM as well, so I was using that as a bit of a guide. I've got everything connected. I'm pretty certain that the distributor is going to get caught by this fitting just down in here where the oil pressure switch is. So it might need another extension to bring it out a little bit further maybe, or a smaller adapter for that. But we'll wait and see what that does. Anyway, so what we're going to do is quickly just jump in the car. I'm just going to see if I can start it. Just make sure that everything works. So we're going to turn the lights on. Let's see if that'll turn on. No, so the dash light stopped working. Okay, that's super odd. I'm pretty sure that it does have a loose connection somewhere. I'll just give this a quick little, see if we can get it to work. Oh, that, yeah, there we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's mega odd. We had that connection problem the other day. All right, so I'll give it a little bit of willy. So we just get it going. All right, let's watch the tacho far right inside. So this one here. Cool, all right. That's all we need to do for now. That is a great success because we know that the tacho now works. It is revving a little bit high. As you saw, I did give it a little bit of throttle. So I think at this stage, what we need to do is put coolant in it, make sure that there's no coolant leaks to begin with. I've retensioned the head, the rockers are good. It does sound pretty good when it starts. I don't run it for too long, any more than probably 5 minutes, just to make sure that we can get the timing and stuff sorted. So I'll kind of get everything ready where we need it to be off camera, and then I can start it. We'll just kind of give it a quick little tune, just adjust everything, kind of make the timing. I think Jeremy said something like 18 degrees before top to 10, I think, at idle, so we'll see how we go. I'm not sure about the vacuum advanced port as well on the distributor, so this one here, I think you might just have to block that off, but I'll do some research off camera. Get it started, do a quick little tune, and then after that it won't be running anymore. Essentially we want to be running this thing in on the road, so because it's unregistered, as you can see, there are 0 number plates on it, front or rear. We do need to get this thing on the road to be able to properly bed it in, so it needs to be under load. Generally, as you saw on the 1330, I started up in the shed, ran it for 20 minutes at like 2,500 RPM. You can do it like that, you can do it however you want, to be honest, but it may not always be the result you're after. So it all just comes down to personal preference. Whatever works for you to bed an engine in, or to do a service, or rebuild something, you know, do something like this, it is all up to the person. There's no real technical right and wrong answer. I'm sure people in the comments will let me know that I'm wrong and that you have to do it this way, and that's cool. That is completely fine. But it's up to the person doing the job who decides how to do it, and who you listen to as well is another really big important thing. It's good to get opinions from different people, but you need to learn who you can trust and who you need to listen to. If you're going around and asking every single person the same question and you're just choosing the best answers, you're not really learning, you're just kind of choosing what you want to hear. Try and stick to a couple of small niche people who can help you with this sort of stuff. That's pretty much it for this episode. I'll get everything kind of timed up, ready roughly where I need it to be. Off camera, get the coolant in there, and then we'll start it, get it running. I'll probably do it on the weekend, hopefully, when my kids are asleep, or at least Jackson's entertained and Adeline's asleep, or the kids are out doing something. So, in the meantime, I do have a couple extra things I need to do. We do have the other seat in there as well, which looks absolutely mint. Super, super stoked about that. The customer and I actually sat in this the other day, and it just felt really, really good. There we go, put some light on it. And as I said, this guy's like 6'7", and you know, we fit in there quite comfortably, so it does look the absolute bee's knees. We are thinking of also getting the headlining done exactly the same, diamond stitching on the side with a stripe down the middle, but we're gonna wait and see how that turns out. The door cards as well, he's gonna organize himself. He wants those in black alloy, which would be really nice, especially with the chrome or the brushed alloy, should I say. So essentially the rear seat in this is going to be out of an Audi TT, and a TT Audi is bigger than a Mini, so he has to get it condensed and made to suit. So he's going to get that, which is going to be really mad. There's not really going to be a great deal of room, so we also have to wire up the electric seats, which I might actually do in the next episode, depending which one you see first. So we're going to wire those up. I think from memory, these go up, down, forward and back with the lumbar support, so wait and see about that. Some reverse lights as well, we need to work out how we're going to run those. We do have some wiring just hanging down here at the moment, just hanging out through here. Hello. And on that side as well. Whew, this thing stinks. There is currently a 13mm hole just here. It's really hard to see. I do apologise. I'll try and put a photo on the screen. Essentially, we probably need to drill that out and put something there, like a little LED reverse light, or ultimately I can just wire it up to the reverse light. Wire the reverse lights up to the indicators to get them to work. We also have the number plate light to fit, which is this light assembly. We've got a new cover coming. Got the harness, which will readapt to suit. A couple little extra things. Oh yeah, there's the number plate surround just there. We do have a couple of face plates as well, which is going to look really cool. So I might just mount those temporarily with the old gauges in there. I'll show you, the old switch panels in there. So we'll see how that looks. I need to do actually the heater cable and the choke cable as well. So I'll do that in another episode. So there's a few things left for this to go at the time of filming. It is the 1st of March, 2025. So I do have to the end of this month to get it done. So it is almost there. It's just all the fiddly little nitty gritty stuff that we need to get going on. So I'm going to stop babbling. Thanks for watching. Hope you're enjoying the last couple of episodes on the Black Mosquito. I cannot wait to see this thing at the Rolston Classic. Hopefully 2025 we will have it going. As you can see, I do have a gearbox down there and another engine that's coming up on another episode. I want to run through a couple of things I've learned lately with you guys on that. Oh, did you notice the gauges underneath the triple cluster as well? Looks absolutely mint. Anyway, hope you guys have a great evening. We'll catch you on the next episode of Tomo's Tune Ups.